The fortress moon of Aura hung in the black sky like a gray stone. No plants grew there. No birds sang. The only sounds were the hum of machines and the footsteps of soldiers. This was a place built for one purpose only: war. Deep inside the fortress, past walls of metal and doors that needed codes to open, there was a place the soldiers called the kennels. It was not a kind name. The kennels held children, 64 of them. They came from many different worlds and many different species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had feathers, but they all had one thing in common: they were afraid. The Dominion had ruled this part of space for 12,000 years. They were tall beings with gray skin and 4 eyes that never seemed to blink. They believed in strength. They believed in order. They believed that the best soldiers were made from children taken young and trained hard, so they took cubs from the worlds they conquered. They brought them to places like Aura. They turned them into weapons. Instructor Prime walked through the kennels every morning. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the rows of small cages. Each cage held a cub. Each cub had a number painted on their arm. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 64. Names were not allowed. Names made you remember who you were before. Names made you weak. The cubs learned this lesson quickly. They learned many lessons quickly on Aura. They learned that crying earned them pain. They learned that helping another cub earned them hunger. They learned that the only way to survive was to obey, to fight, and to forget everything else. Was proud of his work. He had trained hundreds of cohorts over the years. He knew exactly how much pressure to apply, exactly when to punish and when to reward. The cubs that came to him were soft and scared. The soldiers that left were hard and empty. That was the goal. On this particular morning, something unusual happened. A new prisoner arrived at the fortress. This was not strange by itself. Prisoners came often, but this prisoner was different. He was human. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only left their home world a few hundred years ago. They had spread to a handful of nearby stars, built some colonies, and tried to make friends with their neighbors. Then they met the Dominion. The meeting did not go well. The humans fought back when the Dominion tried to take their worlds. They lost, of course. Everyone lost against the Dominion eventually, but they fought harder than expected. This human had been captured during a battle at a place called Station. His name was Cole. He had been a combat medic, which meant his job was to keep soldiers alive after they were hurt. The Dominion had studied him and decided he might be useful. Living tools were always valuable. 2 guards brought to stand before in the main corridor of the kennels. Was not tall for a human. He had brown skin, short black hair, and tired eyes. His hands were rough from work. There were old scars on his arms from battles he had survived. Looked down at the human with all 4 of his eyes. He saw nothing special. Just another small creature from a small world. "You are a healer," said. His voice was flat and cold. "You will work here. The cubs must be kept functional for training. You will repair them when they break. You will feed them. You will keep them alive, nothing more." Did not answer right away. His eyes moved past to the rows of cages behind him. He saw the cubs inside. He saw a small creature with orange fur and big ears curled in the corner of her cage. He saw a reptilian child with green scales, her eyes staring at nothing. He saw dozens of young faces, all of them broken in different ways. "Understood," said quietly. Nodded. "Good. Do your work well and you will live. Fail and you will not. This is simple." The guards took to a small room near the kennels. It had a bed, a toilet, and a locked door. This would be his home now. Every morning they would let him out to work. Every night they would lock him back inside. For the first few days, did exactly what he was told. He moved through the kennels with his medical tools. He cleaned wounds. He set broken bones. He gave shots to cubs who were sick. He did not speak except when necessary. He did not look at the cubs for too long. But was watching. He was always watching. He noticed how the cub with orange fur flinched whenever anyone raised their hand near her. He noticed how the reptilian girl hummed softly to herself when she thought no one could hear. He noticed how the smallest cub, a tiny creature with blue skin and big dark eyes, stared at the door every single night. She was waiting for someone. Her parents, maybe, someone who would never come. Had seen terrible things in his life. He had been a medic in a war. He had held soldiers as they died. He had made impossible choices about who to save and who to let go. He thought he understood suffering. But this was different. These were children, and the Dominion was not just hurting them. The Dominion was erasing them, taking away everything that made them who they were, turning them into empty shells that followed orders. On his fifth night in the small, locked room, sat on his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his own childhood. He thought about his mother, who had called him Little Bear when he was small. He thought about his father, who had taught him that the strongest thing a person could do was help someone weaker. He thought about the cubs in their cages, 64 children with numbers instead of names. Was just one human. He had no weapons. He had no power. He was a prisoner in a fortress full of enemies. There was nothing he could do to save these children, nothing that would make any real difference. But maybe he did not need to save them. Maybe he just needed to remind them of something they had forgotten. Maybe he just needed to remind them that they were not numbers. They were people, and people had names. Closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would begin. He did not know if it would work. He did not know if it would matter, but he knew he had to try. The cubs cried every night in the kennels. Their tears fell silently because they had learned that sound brought pain, but they still cried. Made himself a promise in that small dark room. One day they would smile instead. Started small. He had to. The guards watched everything. The cameras recorded everything. One wrong move and he would disappear, just like the cubs who failed their training. So he learned to be careful. He learned to be patient. He learned to hide kindness in small moments. The cub with orange fur was his first. Her number was 23. She had come to the kennels 8 months ago from a forest world that the Dominion had conquered. Her species was called They were small and quick, with soft fur and large ears that could hear sounds from very far away. In the wild, they lived in family groups and took care of each other. Here, she was alone. Found her during his morning rounds. She had a deep cut on her arm from training. The wound was infected. It must have hurt badly, but she did not make a sound as he cleaned it. She had learned not to show pain. "This will sting," said quietly as he applied medicine to the wound. "I am sorry." The cub looked up at him. Her amber eyes were empty, like windows into a dark room. She did not understand why he was apologizing. No one had ever apologized to her for causing pain. Wrapped a clean bandage around her arm. As he worked, he leaned close and spoke in a voice so soft that even the cameras would not hear. "I am going to call you Myra," he whispered. "It is a name from my world. It means wonderful. Is that okay with you?" The cub stared at him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then something moved behind her eyes. It was small, like a tiny flame in a cold wind, not hope. Hope was too strong a word, but it was something. "Myra," she repeated. Her voice was rough from not speaking. The word felt strange on her tongue, but also good, like finding a piece of something she had lost. Smiled at her. It was a small smile, quick and secret. Then he stood up and moved to the next cage, just another prisoner doing his job. But Myra watched him go. And that night when the lights went dark and the guards walked away, she whispered her new name to herself over and over again. "Myra, Myra, Myra." Word spread through the kennels in the way that secrets always spread among children. Quietly, carefully, through glances and gestures and words spoken when no one was watching. The human gives names. The human speaks softly. The human asks if you are okay. One by one, the cubs found reasons to need medical attention. A small cut that would not heal, a cough that would not stop, a pain in the stomach that came and went. Understood what they were doing, he treated each one carefully, and while he worked, he learned them. The reptilian girl who hummed became. Her humming was a song from her home world, a lullaby her mother had sung to her before the Dominion came. She was strong and quiet, and she watched over the smaller cubs when the guards were not looking. The tiny blue-skinned cub became Pip. She was the youngest in the kennels, barely old enough to walk when she was taken. She did not remember her parents or her home. She only knew this place. But something in her still hoped, still waited, still believed that someone would come for her. There was 7, a tall cub with gray feathers who became Ash. There was 31, a 4-armed cub with black fur who became Shadow. There was 52, a pale cub with no hair and large, dark eyes who became Ghost. Each name was chosen carefully. Each name meant something. Did not just give them names, he gave them back pieces of themselves. He asked them questions that no one else asked. What do you remember about your home? What foods did you like? What games did you play? What made you laugh? The cubs struggled to answer at first. Many of them had tried so hard to forget their old lives that the memories were buried deep, but was patient. He listened. He remembered everything they told him. And he told them stories about Earth. He told them about oceans so big that you could not see the other side. about mountains covered in white snow, about cities full of millions of humans living together. He told them about families, about parents who loved their children and worked hard to keep them safe. He told them about a thing called school, where children learn not to fight, but to read and write and understand the world. "Why?" asked one night, her voice barely a whisper. "Why do humans do these things? It makes you weak." Thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe kindness is what makes us strong enough to keep going when everything falls apart. I have seen terrible things, I have seen friends die, I have seen worlds burn, but I am still here. And do you know why?" Shook her head. "Because someone was kind to me when I needed it most, and that kindness stayed with me. It gave me something to hold on to when everything else was gone." Paused. "That is what I want to give you, something to hold on to." The cubs did not fully understand. They had lived in darkness for so long that the idea of light seemed like a fairy tale. But they wanted to believe. They wanted it so badly that it hurt. Weeks passed, then months. The cubs still trained every day. They still fought and bled and suffered under cold eyes. But something had changed. They were not alone anymore. They had each other. They had names. They had a human who treated them like people instead of tools. The tears stopped slowly, not all at once but little by little. The cubs still felt pain. They still felt fear. But now they also felt something else. Connection, belonging, family. Notice the change. The cohort was performing well in training. They moved together smoothly. They followed orders without hesitation. He assumed his methods were finally working. He assumed the cubs were becoming the empty soldiers the Dominion needed. He was wrong. The cubs were not becoming empty. They were becoming full of names and stories and secrets shared in the dark, full of hope that they had thought was dead. And at the center of it all was one human who had decided that kindness was worth more than safety. One human who had looked at 64 numbers and seen 64 people. The cubs used to cry during training. Now they smiled when spoke their names. And that smile was the most dangerous thing in the fortress. A full year passed on the fortress moon of Aura. The cubs grew taller. Their bodies became stronger from training, but the biggest changes were the ones that no one could see. Had become more than a healer to them. He had become a teacher. Every moment he could steal, every second when the guards looked away, he used to teach the cubs things the Dominion never would. He taught them how to care for each other. When one cub was hurt, the others learned to help. They shared their food with those who were weak. They whispered encouragement to those who were scared. They became a family in a place designed to destroy families. "In my world," told them one night, "there is a word called Ubuntu. It comes from an old language. It means that a person is a person because of other people. We are connected, all of us. When one of us suffers, we all suffer. When one of us is happy, we all share that happiness." The cubs listened with wide eyes. This idea was strange to them. The Dominion taught that strength came from standing alone, that caring for others made you weak, that the only thing that mattered was winning. But showed them a different way. "The strongest humans I ever knew," he said, "were not the ones who could fight the best. They were the ones who would carry a wounded friend on their back for miles. They were the ones who would give their last food to a stranger. They were the ones who never left anyone behind." Myra asked the question that all the cubs were thinking. But what if caring for others gets you killed? Smiled sadly. "Sometimes it does, but here is the secret, Myra. Everyone dies someday. The question is not how long you live. The question is how you live. And I would rather live a short life full of love than a long life full of nothing." The cubs thought about this often. They had been taught to fear death more than anything. They had been taught to do whatever it took to survive, but was showing them that some things were worth more than survival. He also taught them about forgiveness. This was perhaps the hardest lesson of all. "Someday," said, "you will have a choice. You can hold on to your anger forever. You can hate the people who hurt you until that hate burns you up from inside. Or you can choose to let it go, not for them, for yourself." Shook her head. "How can we forgive? They took everything from us, our homes, our families, our names." "I did not say forget," replied. "Remember everything, remember what they did and why it was wrong, but do not let that memory turn you into something like them. That is how they really win, not by killing your body, but by killing your heart." The cubs did not fully understand. They were still young, but the words planted seeds in their minds, seeds that would grow over time. As the months passed, the cohort became something special. They still trained like soldiers. They still followed orders. But there was a bond between them that no other cohort had. When one cub struggled, the others found ways to help without being noticed. When one cub was punished, the others saved small pieces of food for them. When one cub cried in the night, there was always someone nearby to whisper comfort. They had become the thing the Dominion feared most without knowing it. They had become a family. Instructor Prime began to notice that something was wrong. At first, it was small things. The cubs moved together too smoothly during training. They protected each other too naturally. When one fell behind, the others slowed down just enough to keep the group together. This was not what he had trained them to do. He had trained them to leave the weak behind. He had trained them to think only of themselves. Then he noticed the way they looked at the human. During medical rounds, the cubs would watch with strange expressions. Not fear, not hate, something else. Something that made Four Eyes narrow with suspicion. He began to review the surveillance recordings. Hour after hour, he watched move through the kennels. He watched him treat wounds and check temperatures and give medicine. Everything looked normal. Everything looked exactly as it should be. But was patient, he kept watching, and finally he saw it. Leaning close to a cub, his lips moving, words too soft for the cameras to hear, and the cub's face changing, just for a moment, just a tiny shift in expression that most people would miss. But did not miss it. He watched more closely after that. He saw touch a cub's forehead gently after treating a wound. He saw smile at the small blue cub called Pip. He saw the cubs respond to sounds that were not their numbers. They would turn their heads when made certain noises, like he was calling them something else, something secret. Names. The human was giving them names. Understood the danger immediately. Names were forbidden for good reason. A number was just a number. It had no meaning, no power, no weight, but a name was different. A name made you someone. A name connected you to a past and a future. A name made you human. Well, not human exactly, but it made you a person, and persons were much harder to control than numbers. Did not act right away. He was too smart for that. If he simply punished the human, the damage would already be done. The cubs would remember their names. They would remember the kindness they had been shown. They might even become angry, dangerous. No, he needed a different approach. He needed to break them completely. He needed to show them that everything had taught them was a lie. That kindness led only to suffering. That family led only to pain. He needed to make them choose between their bonds and their lives. Smiled with all four of his mouths. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had broken thousands of spirits and was about to break some more. The cubs had no idea what was coming. They went to sleep that night like any other night. Myra whispered good night too. Shadow hummed a quiet song. Pip dreamed of a world with sunlight and soft grass. And sat in his small locked room, staring at the ceiling, feeling proud of what he had built. He did not know that was already planning to tear it down. The alarm woke everyone at midnight. It was a terrible sound, sharp and loud, designed to fill the body with fear. The cubs scrambled out of their cages as guards flooded the kennels. There was no time to think, no time to prepare. They were pushed and shoved into a line and marched through dark corridors they had never seen before. Was dragged from his room at the same time. His hands were bound behind his back. Two guards held his arms so tightly that he could not move. He tried to see the cubs, tried to catch their eyes, but the guards pushed him forward too fast. They came to a large metal door. It opened with a grinding sound, and they were pushed through into a place that made heart stop. It was an arena, a huge circular space with walls of gray metal rising high on every side. Bright lights shone down from above, making everything look cold and harsh. There were no shadows here, nowhere to hide. In the center of the arena, Instructor Prime waited. His four eyes moved slowly across the cubs as they were herded onto the sand floor. His expression was calm, patient. He had done this before. Was forced onto a viewing platform above the arena floor. Metal restraints locked around his wrists and ankles. He could see everything below, but he could not move. He could not help. Today, announced, his voice echoing off the metal walls, we test your cohesion. The cubs stood together in a loose group. Myra was near the front, stood beside her. Pip held onto Shadow's hand. They looked up with confusion and growing fear. Guards moved through the group, placing weapons on the ground in front of each cub. Knives, short swords, fighting sticks, one weapon for each of them. Pick them up, ordered. The cubs obeyed. Their hands trembled as they lifted the weapons. They had trained with weapons before. They knew how to use them, but something about this felt different. Something felt very wrong. "You have become too close," said. "You have forgotten your purpose. You are not family. You are not friends. You are weapons of the Dominion, and weapons do not love each other. Weapons do not protect each other. Weapons destroy." He let the words hang in the air. "Today you will fight each other. You will keep fighting until only one of you remains alive. This is the only way to prove your worth. This is the only way to survive." The cubs looked at each other. Horror spread across their faces like a wave. Fight each other. Kill each other. Kill Myra. Kill little Pip. "No," someone whispered, could not see who. Heard it, his 4 eyes narrowed. "Those who refuse will be executed immediately. Those who hesitate will join them. You have 10 seconds to begin." Up on the platform, threw himself against his restraints. The metal cut into his skin, but he did not care. "No," he screamed. "They are children. They are just children." The guards hit him to make him quiet, but he kept screaming. His voice echoed through the arena. The cubs looked up at him. They saw the desperation in his eyes. They saw that he was fighting for them even when he could not win. 10 began counting. 9, 8. The cubs stood frozen. Their weapons hung at their sides. They looked at each other with tears running down their faces. 7, 6, 5. Myra's mind raced. She thought about everything it taught them, about Ubuntu, about being a person because of other people, about how some things were worth more than survival. 4, 3. Myra stepped forward. Her knife gleamed in the bright lights. Every eye in the arena watched her. 2. She raised her weapon high above her head. 1. And she drove it down into the sand at her feet. The knife stood there buried to the handle as Myra stepped back. Her chin was raised. Her amber eyes were not empty anymore. They were full of fire. "No," she said clearly, "we will not." For a moment nothing happened, then stepped forward and threw her sword into the sand beside Myra's knife. Then Shadow, then Pip, then Ash and Ghost and all the others, one by one, until 63 weapons stood buried in the ground like a forest of steel. The cubs gathered together in the center of the arena. They held each other's hands. They were crying, but they were not crying from fear. They were crying because they had made a choice, the hardest choice, and they had made it together. Stared at them. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what to do. This had never happened before. No cohort had ever refused. The training was supposed to make refusal impossible. The fear was supposed to be stronger than everything else. But these cubs were not afraid of death anymore. They were afraid of losing each other, and that was stronger. "Fine," said coldly, "then you will all die together." He pressed a button on his wrist device. Panels opened in the walls of the arena. Automated turrets emerged, their weapons glowing with deadly light. 20 turrets, enough to kill everyone in seconds. Last Chance said, "Fight or die." The cubs did not move. They held each other. Pip buried her face against Shadow's chest, started humming her mother's lullaby. Myra looked up on the platform. Their eyes met. In that moment, 1,000 words passed between them without being spoken. "Thank you. I am proud of you. I am sorry. I love you." Made a decision. He had been working on his restraints since they put him on the platform. The metal was strong, but his wrists were slippery with blood from struggling. With one final, agonizing pull, his right hand came free. He moved before anyone could stop him. He grabbed a guard's weapon, spun, and fired at the control panel on the wall. Sparks flew everywhere. The turrets made a grinding sound and went dark. Then jumped. It was a long fall from the platform to the arena floor. He hit the sand hard and felt something break in his leg. The pain was incredible, but he forced himself up. He had to reach the cubs. He had to protect them. Guards poured into the arena, fired at them, standing between the cubs and death. He hit 1, 2, 3, but there were too many. "Run," he shouted over his shoulder. "The south corridor, it leads to the shuttle bay. Go now." "We will not leave you," Myra screamed. "You have to. Everything I taught you means nothing if you die here." Turned to look at her just for a second. His eyes were full of tears and love and desperation. "You are not numbers, Myra. You are people. Now go be people somewhere else. Go live. Go be free. Do it for me." A plasma bolt hit in the shoulder. He stumbled but did not fall. Myra grabbed the other cubs. "Move, everyone move now." They ran toward the south corridor as had told them. Behind them, they heard more weapons fire. They heard screaming at the guards, drawing their attention, giving the cubs time to escape. They reached the corridor, they kept running. Tears blinded them, but they did not stop. Behind them, the weapons fire went quiet. Myra did not look back, she could not. If she looked back, she would stop, and had told them to run. So she ran. They all ran. And somewhere behind them, alone in the arena, Cole fell to his knees in the sand. His body was broken. His blood was spreading in a dark pool around him, but his face was peaceful. He had done it, he had saved them. His children were going to live. The south corridor was long and dark. Emergency lights flickered red along the walls. Alarms screamed from everywhere and nowhere. The cubs ran through it all, their bare feet slapping against cold metal, their hearts pounding so hard they could hear nothing else. Myra led the way. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that it told them to run, and so she ran. Behind her carried Pip on her back. Shadow helped Ash, who had hurt his leg. Ghost and the others followed in a desperate group, holding on to each other so no one would be left behind. They reached a door marked with symbols they could not read. Myra hit the panel beside it again and again until it finally opened. On the other side was the shuttle bay. It was a huge space filled with ships of different sizes. Most were locked down with heavy clamps, but in the far corner, one small shuttle sat waiting. Its door was open. Its lights were on, almost like someone had left it ready. Later, Myra would learn that it spent months studying the fortress layout during his medical rounds. He had found this shuttle weeks ago. He had been preparing an escape route the entire time, knowing that someday they might need it. He had given them everything, even the path to freedom. "Everyone inside," Myra shouted. "Now." The cubs poured into the shuttle. It was cramped. There were not enough seats, but no one cared. They pressed together, holding each other, crying and shaking and alive. Moved to the pilot controls. She had no training, but Dominion shuttles were designed to be simple. She pressed buttons until the engines roared to life. "Wait," Pip said suddenly, her small voice cut through the chaos. "Where is?" Everyone went silent. Myra looked at the shuttle door. She thought about going back. She thought about fighting through the guards and finding and carrying him to safety. She wanted to. She wanted to so badly that her whole body ached with it. But she could see the guards coming through the shuttle bay door. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe. And she could hear his voice in her head, clear as if he were standing beside her. "Go live, go be free, do it for me." "He is not coming," Myra said. The words broke something inside her, but she said them anyway. "Close the door, take us out of here." Pip started crying. Shadow held her tight. Everyone was crying now, even Myra, tears streaming down her orange fur. But's hand stayed steady on the controls. She closed the door. She lifted the shuttle off the ground. She flew them through the bay doors and into the black sky. Behind them, the fortress moon of Aura shrank until it was just a gray dot among the stars. In the arena lay on the sand. The guards had stopped shooting. There was no point anymore. The cubs were gone. He had won. Stood over him, all four eyes filled with cold rage. "You have destroyed years of work," he said. "You have ruined an entire cohort. For what? They will be hunted. They will be found. They will be killed. You have accomplished nothing." Looked up at him. His breathing was shallow. His vision was fading at the edges, but he smiled. "You are wrong," he whispered. "I accomplished everything." "Explain yourself." "You took their names, I gave them back. You tried to make them empty, I filled them up. You taught them to be alone, I taught them to be family." Coughed and blood stained his lips. "They will never forget that. No matter what happens to them, no matter where they go, they will carry it with them forever, and they will pass it on to others. And those others will pass it on too. That is how humans work. That is how we win even when we lose." Stared at him with no understanding. The concept was foreign to everything the Dominion believed. One human, one small, weak human, changing the course of 63 lives through nothing but kindness. It should not have been possible. "You are dying," said, "and you are smiling. Why?" Closed his eyes. In his mind he could see them, Myra and Pip and Shadow and all the others. He could see them flying through space, scared but free. He could see them growing up, becoming strong, becoming kind. He could see them helping others the way he had helped them. "Because I am not dying alone," said. "I have a family now, 63 children who will remember me, who will carry pieces of me wherever they go. That is more than most people ever get. That is enough." His voice faded, his smile remained. Cole, combat medic from Earth, prisoner of the Dominion, father to 63 children of the stars, died on the sand of that cold arena. But he was right about one thing. They never forgot. 17 years later, a ship called the Cole jumped out of hyperspace above a Dominion fortress world. It was not alone. A fleet of 400 ships surrounded it, all of them flying the flag of the Free Systems Alliance. On the bridge of the Cole, Admiral Myra stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Her orange fur was streaked with gray now. Old scars marked her face and arms, but her amber eyes still held the same fire that had burned in them when she threw her knife into the sand. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "the Dominion commander is requesting terms of surrender." Myra nodded slowly. The Alliance had been fighting the Dominion for 12 years now. What had started as 63 escaped cubs had grown into a movement that spanned dozens of worlds. Other prisoners had joined them. Other conquered peoples had risen up. The Dominion's grip on the galaxy was weakening every day. "Tell them our terms are the same as always," Myra said. "Release all prisoners, free all conquered worlds, shut down the training facilities." She paused, "and give back the names." The officer sent the message. Myra turned to look out the viewport at the fortress world below. Somewhere down there, another generation of cubs was suffering in cages, waiting for someone to tell them they were people. "Admiral," a young ensign approached nervously. She was new to the ship, fresh from the academy. She had never spoken to the famous Admiral before. Myra turned to her with a gentle expression. "Yes. I just wanted to say, it is an honor to serve with you. The stories about you and the first 63. They are what made me join the Alliance." Myra smiled. It was the same smile that had given her, all those years ago in the kennels, warm and kind and full of hope. "What is your name, Ensign?" The young officer blinked, surprised by the question. "Admiral." "Good to meet you." Myra reached out and touched her shoulder gently. "Welcome to the family." Across the fleet, in every ship and on every world the Alliance controlled, it was the same. Officers learned the names of their crew. The wounded were never left behind. Kindness was not weakness. It was doctrine. It was law. It was the foundation of everything they built. The Dominion had ruled for 12,000 years through fear and pain. The Alliance would last longer, because it was built on something stronger. It was built on 63 children who had learned to love instead of hate, on one human who had traded his life for their souls, on names whispered in the dark and kindness hidden in small moments. The cubs used to cry during training. Now they led fleets and freed worlds and changed the galaxy. And every single day, in every corner of Alliance space, someone spoke the name of Cole, not with sadness, not with grief. With gratitude, with love, with a smile,